Welcome into Becoming and the challenge that we're working on. This is week number 7, and I'm so excited for those of you that have been here every week and continue to be consistent and joined us. If this is your first time here, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us as well, and want to just let you know that this is week number 7, and there's more where this came from if you'd like to scroll down to the notes of this video and be able to take advantage of the entire series with us. Week number 7, we're really focusing on increasing action. And in order to increase action, we have to increase commitment, decrease some of our commitments, and really recommit to what it is that we're going after. And so this whole challenge is about becoming who we are becoming. How do we grow intentionally? How do we grow in a bigger way into who God is becoming us? And, we discussed early on in the series that we are not determining our action based on our present, rather based on the goal, based on what we want to be, what we want to accomplish in our lives, and letting that determine what actions we take. And if you're feeling some friction right now in the process, in the series, then that is probably because you are bumping up against that new level. And whenever we try to go to a new level, there are new frictions, new challenges, new opportunities for us that have to be taken into consideration. And a lot of times the things that we've been doing create friction, create frustration, because they're not the things that we need to be doing in this new step, in this new season. And so another thing we talked about that recently is that focus is not just saying yes to the right things, but saying no to the things that are not the right things, so that you have the space to focus on the right things. It becomes your goal, your God possible goal becomes the filter through which you make those decisions. And so when you're focused on that goal, when you're able to hone in on that and say, does this get me closer to my goal? If not, then no. Then that becomes a filter through which you can make decisions and be able to improve more rapidly. The filter becomes a primary strategy for you to be able to say no. And, we talk often about Paul saying, I have decided to leave behind the weights that used to beset me so that I can press forward towards the mark of the high calling of God. He's totally focusing on what is before him. How do I get there? How do I do this for the glory of God? How do I become that person? And that's what we're talking about here. Not being dragged down by the things of the past, not being dragged down by the things of the present, but taking the future that is before us and letting that be the filter for how I make decisions for today. Does future Katie do things this way? If not, then no, I don't want to do that way either. And I mentioned things as simple as, does future Katie drink pop? Then no, then I don't need to be drinking pop today, or I need to be drinking less pop today to be drinking more water, right? Future Katie has a kitchen garden, enjoys gardening. Past Katie never had a green thumb in her whole life, right? Couldn't even keep fake flowers looking good. But future Katie wants to be a Katie who's a gardener. And so I'm going to make decisions today that allows me to grow into that future Katie. And so recommitting to the result, whatever your God possible goal is, if it's a personal goal, if it has to do with your health, if it has to do with your finances, if it's a business goal having to do with your impact or your finances, if it's a family goal or a relationship goal or a friendship goal, whatever that is, recommitting to the result. And, having a God possible goal means that it is something that feels impossible right now. In the current situation, with the current resources, it feels impossible. That's why we call it God possible, because for man this is impossible. With God, all things are possible, right? And going to our God for that wisdom. James 1 talks about, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives freely, liberally, generously, and upbraideth not, meaning he doesn't reprimand you for asking for that wisdom. Lord, how do I get to this God possible goal? And being able to decommit to the things that would distract, decommit to the things that would take away my energies, my resources, my time, my focus from the goal that we're going towards, to reallocate those resources, to recommit those resources towards the God possible goal that I'm trying to reach. I think it's real important this week to focus in on some of the outside circumstances that can also be causing friction in this becoming process. And a lot of those are other people's designs for you, other people's goals for you, other people's definitions of success. And I know in our story, particularly my husband and I, when we decided as full-time missionaries, full-time ministry people to start a business, other people had lots to say about that. Other people had goals for us. Other people had desires for us. Other people had opinions. Other people had feelings about what we were doing or choosing to do. And we had to distance ourselves from those. We had to recognize that God has given us designs and desires. God has given us goals to follow him. And we have to hold fast to our goals, to our definition of success as God has given it to us, and let go of other people's. And I'm not saying that everyone else's designs for you are bad necessarily. There's lots of people in our life who have desires for us because they love us. They want to keep us safe. They want to see us happy, but they are not getting the downloads from God that we're getting. They don't have the same desires in our heart in their hearts that God has put in ours. And so we have to kindly accept that what they're doing is hopefully out of love, but we still have to follow what we know God has called us to do. You get to choose, and you can choose to follow everyone else's designs for you, or you can choose to follow what God has put in your heart. And that can be a cause of friction. Another thing that can cause friction from those outside of us is that as you grow, and particularly as you decide to grow faster and be intentional about becoming who God is becoming you, you can grow faster than those around you. And they can feel that as a friction point, as a threat in some cases, because they aren't growing as fast as you, or they don't want to grow and change as fast as you. And so having some grace and understanding in those areas as well, and understanding that my growth is going to affect me, but it's also going to affect those around me. And sometimes that can be a negative effect, even though it wasn't intended. And just having the grace to understand that some people might feel threatened because you're growing and changing. We can have grace with them. We can love them. We can encourage them to do their own growing, but we can't grow for them. And we can't force them to grow with us. And so we have to let God do his own work in their hearts, just as we're allowing God to work in our hearts. Pray for them, love them, deal with them with grace. But ultimately, you are not responsible for their growth. You're responsible for your growth. And I think, what scriptures do you have for this? The scriptures that are coming to mind are the scriptures of love, without envy, without jealousy, without malice, without talking bad about people. The scriptures about how the body of Christ doesn't intentionally offend, about how the body of Christ loves and works together for one another. Like all of those scriptures is what encourages us to do our own growth and to reach forward for that prize God is holding in front of us, but also to have grace and to have love with those around us. And so you get to choose today how you're going to grow, and you get to choose how you're going to interact with those around you who are or are not growing with you. And I want you to choose wisely. If you don't have a God possible goal in your head right now, then what are you growing for, right? And again, I'll mention, someone said that the definition of happiness is someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Like, what is that goal for you? Who's God becoming you? What is he encouraging you to accomplish in your life, to grow into? And how can we do that this week? I believe this week there are 3 questions that we're going to be really meditating on, journaling around. If you're participating in the homework, these are the questions we want you to send in for us, and there'll be instructions down below for how to join the email list and get those instructions to fully participate. But the questions we want to really focus on and simmer in our hearts this week is, number 1, like, what are you choosing? What is that God possible goal? And are you really all in to choose it, even if those around you are not all in with you? Is this such a big thing for you that you're going after it regardless of who goes with you? And just journal around that. What comes up for you? What talks do you need to have with your Lord about this? How do you need to treat those people around you? How committed are you to going after that God possible goal? And then how have you been limiting yourself in terms of reaching that goal? A lot of times we can self-sabotage. We say it's one thing, but we're not really putting our whole heart into it. How have you been allowing yourself to be distracted And what are you going to do about it? I hope that there'll be some great growth this week. We're still in month number 2. There's still a couple weeks left. You can do this. You can grow, but it's going to take recommitting, decommitting, and going for the God possible goal. We'll see you next week.